welcome to the Crafted Conversation with me, Marcus Sharrod, where we give consideration to the art of performance and development in the classroom or instructional environment on the coaching field for sports coaches, and consider a culture of performance where conversations will explore anything from instructional methods, teaching and learning, which is informed by educational and cognitive psychology, motivation theory, cognitive biases, designing programs of learning, the use of feedback and assessment, and also consider group dynamics and performance as well as individual performance. None of this can be explored without the lens of identity and storytelling and generating a sense of belonging within the cultural performance in which we exist. So, without further ado, we continue with today's crafted conversation. Welcome back to the Crafted Conversation, where today I want to talk about character development, character and virtues that go beyond just performance metrics. Outcomes are essential to intrinsic motivation beyond just what's the next goal, how can we get there. And I am particularly interested in this given some really recent work that I've done with two of my existing clients in professional football, who both have forthcoming matches this weekend in the first round of the FA Cup. Best of luck to them. I'm not going to name them for obvious reasons, but they would both be considered to be underdogs in the fixtures that they've got in the Cup. And we all know, as football fans, what the FA Cup means to English football, and particularly what it means to clubs if they can progress through the rounds and earn that additional money that comes through. So come on, the boys. I'm actually going tomorrow evening, and I wanted to draw upon some of the discussion that I'm going to have with one of those teams about character and about the ways in which they can walk towards the challenge in front of them. And character development for me is, as an educator, is essential. I think it's an underlying feature of curriculum which has for far too long been undervalued, gone undernoticed, because we're all sprinting towards outcome metrics, GCSE grade point averages, numbers of English baccalaureate passes, etc., that because they're the measures by which, certainly in the maintained sector, your funding comes through. They're the measures by which in the independent sector you can draw your marketing to get additional pupils through the door. And it's just such a shame, university entrance, blah, blah, blah. It's such a shame that they are the ways in which education is measured rather than the human beings that exit the building, the human beings that are developed within the building. And that will probably be a problem that persists for all of time as Western society educates young people in the way that it does. But look, that's a conversation far beyond this particular podcast. What I'm interested in to draw upon here is how character education, which is woven into the curriculum and actually which is woven into the learning environment, both in a school and in a sports club situation, can make such a huge difference to performance outcomes and in that long-term impact as well that it has on intrinsic motivation, how as an individual but also as a collective, as a unit, you are intrinsically motivated to turn up to work, to turn up to training, to turn up to school and deliver, because there is a level of integrity and morality attached to the way in which you show up each day, which goes beyond just being the person who gets the outcome. It's the process versus outcome, if you like, classic Carol Dweck kind of a mindset activity, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And I'm really interested in talking about how we can be procedurally motivated here through the development of character. What's always nice is to be able to say that actually, when seeking research and seeking material by which we can define character education or any particular thing that I want to discuss on the podcast, you don't have to go any further than a university based in the United Kingdom. University of Birmingham's Jubilee Centre for Character and Virtues is the go-to place for existing current research which is being delivered around the idea of development of character, development of virtues. And when I talk about virtues here, we're discussing this from a Stoic perspective, if you like. Anyone that's familiar with Ryan Holiday's work around virtues, around wisdom, around Stoicism, then that's where we are, rather than a more nuanced, modernized approach to kind of virtue signaling or any other semantics that are out there that potentially are negative towards the word virtue. A virtue is just an existing wisdom by which we morally exist and live our lives. What the Jubilee Centre is particularly interested in is how character development shapes who we are and the societies in which we build. And I think actually what a fantastic advert that is for sports clubs which serve communities and have done in such a way for such a long period of time, particularly football clubs, which of course we know is usually my go-to lens, and how personal traits can become a foundation for living well and contributing positively to the community and to society. The Jubilee Centre's research has actually spanned education systems, workplaces, community organisations and sports clubs, and explores how character traits have impacted everything from personal well-being to collective well-being, professional successes, outcomes, etc. And so as their research grows, they become a really valuable mechanism by which we can explore the development of character within educational and sporting settings. I'd like to talk about character today in the context of the holistic development of the individual or the collective. So beyond just your outcome metrics, your academic achievements, the result on Saturday, your league position, whether you progress through in the cup, we're looking at virtues like courage, honesty, resilience, compassion towards one another, empathy, all of which contribute towards an individual or collective moral compass, if you like, or responsibility that we have for one another societally. So viewing character development through the lens of virtues, then the Jubilee Centre have identified 4 particular virtues, which they consider the 4 key subsections, if you like. One of them moral, civic, intellectual, and performance, each of which I'm going to discuss in more detail now. Before I go on to focus on the 4 different virtues, moral, civic, intellectual, and performance related when it comes to character, a nod to my podcast partner, Keynote Educational, who have, as I outlined it in my last podcast, I'm really excited to say, offered a new promotional campaign in which all listeners who use the code CRAFTED10 can get themselves 10% discount on any conference or workshop that they attend. That's CRAFTED10 for all listeners at keynoteeducational.co.uk. So what defines moral virtues? Well, moral virtues could be honesty, respect, any which way that we define integrity within the workplace, the professional setting, the classroom, the department, the sports team, the football club, whatever it is, then what does integrity look like and what behaviours define integrity? I'm going to be talking a bit about this with the football club that I'm working with currently, because they want to go beyond just what they do on the pitch, how they serve the community, the paying fan that comes to watch them on the pitch, and actually what are we doing that defines us from a respectful and integrity-based scenario. And that doesn't necessarily just mean charitable endeavours, going out and doing something philanthropic, using the football club as a community centre for hosting certain, whatever it is. That yes, of course, those things do demonstrate a respect for the community in which you serve, especially if players attend those types of events. But beyond that, actually, how are we behaving as role models? What defines us as individuals and as a collective on the pitch when the fee-paying fan is there in the stands and they're watching, or young people who consider us as role models are there watching us? And so next we come to civic virtues, the idea that through civility, through service to the community that we are surrounded by, we can actually honour a kind of age-old respect of humanity, that a man supports man, and we come from tribes, we come from communities whereby support, help, allegiance was essential for survival. And in the modern world, that becomes more difficult to emulate. And so how can we be civil, seek out responsibility, and engage in the community? And from a school's perspective, from an education perspective, then qualifications like the Duke of Edinburgh Award quite actively and deliberately create opportunities, in fact define outcomes and passes at bronze, silver and gold based on the fact that you engage in some sort of service. And I think schools, the education system in general, needs to really deliberately take a look at themselves, and seek out those opportunities. Where are we developing civility within our curriculum, within our super curriculum? Yes, we can go and deliver the English baccalaureate subjects, and we can do them in a certain way, and we can design our curriculum around optimizing classroom time and the minimise kind of amount of times in lesson because of attentional deficits that we're observing in children in the modern day. But what chance have they had to go and meet their elders? What chance have they had to go and support the younger generations, listen to them read? What chance have they had to go outside of their comfort zone and go and pick up litter in the street, or go and pack bags for someone in the local supermarket? Developing civility is developing humility. And in developing humility, we are acting as a human species, as Homo sapiens have ancestrally always acted, and that is through support of one another. In addition to this, within the elite sporting environment, I think fandom is essential really to going and supporting your community. If we're talking about sports clubs, particularly football clubs within communities, are the backbone, in some cases, are the absolute mainstay of exemplar behaviours and a passion in such a way that it elevates that local community, that local society beyond its day-to-day. And so football clubs have a very, very important mission in which to develop civic virtues through those that work for the club, particularly role models such as playing staff, because those individuals need to embody the community that they serve. And that becomes even more difficult in the modern day when, in many cases, and I've experienced this myself as a younger man, as a young player, when you go and you chase opportunities and you find yourself in communities that you don't necessarily know anything about, haven't lived in, it's very difficult to embed that sense of you are bigger than just turning up here and performing. This is bigger than you as an individual. And ensuring that you develop that sense of civic virtue within the environment that you work with, ensuring that you develop that civic virtue within the performance environment is essential, because it's humbling. And actually, in being humbling, you recognize that there's more to life than the game. And in knowing that there's more to life than the game, then actually we can frame performance in a much better light. There are psychological performance benefits to just serve the community. Recognize that there is something bigger than you. This is a brief pause in today's crafted conversation to talk about how the crafted concept, the overarching business that supports the crafted conversation, both in newsletter and in podcast form, can best support you in your performance environments. The crafted concept has experience working in the education and elite sports sectors through performance coaching for individuals or for teams, the learning environment, by focusing on those three pillars of the crafted concept of performance: learning environment, learning design, and learning critique. Contact me directly, because I can help you, as I have done on many occasions, developing a sense of cohesion within the team. Performance coaching aims to drive individuals and teams to excel. And as a performance coach, I am an expert in areas of teaching and learning, instructional design, motivational psychology, team development, performance culture and environment, and performance mindset. It's my job to generate activities, use questioning, listening, observing, probing techniques to deliberately seek feedback and present opportunities for lateral thinking and inspire growth and ideas for you as an individual or for the performance of the team and the collective. The crafted concept is your accountability partner, is your critical observer. I'm able to draw upon experiences as an expert teacher and instructor, and as an expertly qualified executive coach, performance coach with over 100 hours worth of coaching experience. As a coach developer in elite sport, I can support and guide coaches through the complexities of your professional development, of your professional environment, offering structure and assisting you in refining your skills through learning environment, learning design, and learning critique. Contact me directly, marcus@thecraftedconcept.co.uk, or look me up on LinkedIn, Marcus Sharrod. And next we come to intellectual virtues, and these are developed around the sense of curiosity, of open-mindedness, of thinking critically about the environment that you work within, that you're learning within. And by having intellectual virtues, we again develop a sense of humility that you can't know everything, and there's always something more to know. And actually, in developing a greater sense of understanding about the world around you, being curious, asking the right questions, being open-minded to different viewpoints, and therefore allowing the opportunity to critique, then we're gaining a lateral thought process that can ultimately better serve us as individuals and as collectives. Those intellectual virtues are absolutely essential to develop within the school community, within a sports club community, in order to develop reflection and actually gain a greater sense of autonomy. From an intellectual point of view, I know to accept different thought processes, to ultimately accommodate those thought processes or disassociate myself from them. But at least by moving in a curious manner, I've been able to better serve my wider intellect and respect the thought processes of others. I think societally, intellectual virtues actually striving for more knowledge can only benefit the collective, be that in the education environment where pupils are inspiring other pupils, or indeed staff members, colleagues are inspiring other colleagues by being open-minded and by being willing to accept critique in their work processes, in the ways in which they frame their lesson content, in the ways in which they accommodate new research-led ideas that that are coming from the worlds of educational psychology, where the pupils are actually happy to receive, willing in fact to receive feedback that is critical, that supports their growth and development, rather than see it as a threat, which or a judgment, which unfortunately we find ourselves societally and culturally in a place that hiding and in a vacuum which is devoid of critique is becoming increasingly prevalent. In the case of the sports team, by being collectively curious, then we're willing to accept new methodologies that we might take on within the training environment or within our preparatory environment. One which draws to mind immediately is a sense of mindfulness, and how mindfulness, though should be common practice psychologically really within performance sports, still carries this East versus West kind of resistance and connotations of hoodoo, challenge us and our Western ideologies. And finally, we come to performance virtues, and these are related to resilience. And of course, resilience is hugely related to a sense of critique, being willing to accept it, to listen to it, and potentially accommodate new thought processes for the future. Perseverance, striving, moving towards a goal, being willing to accept failure, to seek failure, and certainly to frame failures and negatives on the performance pathway as opportunities. Feedback is always just opportunity to reflect, to accommodate new ideas. And of course, performance virtues diverge really into a sense of psychological performance, being able to sustain attention, to approach a task with intent, attention towards the goal orientation, and an intensity to achieve it. And within a team environment, certainly acceptance of the different personalities around you and a sense of teamship and motivation that can drive the team forward intrinsically rather than extrinsically. If it's all extrinsic related, win this trophy, score this many goals, achieve that grade, get that certain percentage in the next assessment, then it's empty. We've spoken so many times on the Crafted Conversation about external motivations being empty, being fallible to unsustainable levels of motivation. It's a sense of process, a sense of intrinsic curiosity, if you like, to switch back to intellectual virtues, a sense of curiosity around, okay, that didn't quite work. What can I hone? How can I, or that did work. I wonder what I can really dissect at this point to determine the reasons why that worked. What can I notice? What did I notice in that moment, or my preparation for that moment, for that assessment, that I can take on in the future, that I can really encode into my long-term memory as a positive performance metric. Performance is about challenge, and we should seek challenge. And curriculum should be foregrounding challenge for pupils. We need our pupils to accept challenge, to be put into holes, if you like, of that they need to dig themselves out of, or they need to accept the expert feedback and reflection in order to design their own path back out of that hole. We cannot wrap society up in cotton wool, because in doing so, then we've not gained any of the experiential awareness to actually be combat the difficulties, the fog and the unfairness, the shrouded nature of what it is to be a human being. So some closing thoughts then. Foregrounding the idea of the development of character and actually extrapolating character out into that moral, civic, intellectual and performance related virtues can be absolutely fundamental to positive performance and changes in performance, perhaps in ways that show a greater level of longevity. Okay, it doesn't mean by doing a character lecture that you're necessarily going to win at the weekend, because I've gone in and delivered a character related workshop with a football club. It doesn't mean that they're going to progress to the second round of the FA Cup, but over time, if embedded and if organic, that sense of how are we being really deliberate in the way in which we are developing the character of these individuals, of these pupils within the school, how does our curriculum tackle character head on, then over time, those virtues will, and as the Jubilee Centre at the University of Birmingham have demonstrated, incorporating character education into curriculum within schools, within sports clubs, within corporate environments, will improve performance, the general happiness and well-being of the individuals involved in that performance environment. We have a responsibility as leaders, as those within learning environments who have a say and take control of the learning design and the ways in which learning is critiqued within that school environment, that elite sport environment, that corporate environment. You have a responsibility as a human being to nurture, hone, and craft individuals with a greater sense of self and community of character. As ever, feel free to shout me up. My socials are linked into the show notes at the bottom. You can find me on LinkedIn as Marcus Sharrod. You can find me on Instagram at The Crafted Concept, or just drop me an email straight in, marcus@thecraftedconcept.co.uk. Would love to hear about how I might be able to support your performance environment. Until next time.